Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, or indeed evening, depending on where you are. I was delighted to see that of the 50 plus people that have enrolled in this session, we've got 16 different countries represented. So great to have you on board for what I think is a great topic. Let me start off with a proposition, and it's as follows. The in-house industry, the in-house legal industry, really is in a potentially tricky situation. Now, why would I say that? Now, regardless of your operating construct, you could be a sole lawyer for an organization, or you could be one of a team of 300. There are a number of irreconcilable truths that affect the industry, and that's as follows. Firstly, the lawyer is amongst the most expensive employee inside an organisation, and as well they should be. Do you want a silly lawyer, or do you want someone who represents the intellectual crown? Obviously. Second irreconcilable truth. There's an increasing, growing perception that legal cannot be that difficult. Why? We've got ChatGPT, we've got Gronk, we've got all these artificial intelligence platforms that are supposedly giving us the answer to everything. And there's an increasing number of tools. So maybe this legal caper ain't as complicated as we thought. Another irreconcilable truth. In too many organizations, the perception of the legal team is that it doesn't really help the business grow, does it? It doesn't grow the bottom line. Not true. And then finally, and this list could be a lot longer than that, which I'm opening with, much of what the in-house team does is not really understood by the business. But then why should it? Not everyone went to university to hear what Lord Wilberforce said in Obiter Dicta. So consequently, there is not a legal team globally that we have met, and we have a network of some 25,000 in-house lawyers, that isn't operating on the same pressures. That's growing pressures to, number one, better manage costs. Number two, make things happen for the business faster. And number three, demonstrate the value that you bring to the business. Otherwise, we're going to have to look at this legal function. Now, the tricky aspect of all of this is that, and raise your hand if this doesn't apply to you, but all in-house teams are already working flat out. Most in-house teams feel as they don't have access to the resources that they need to do the work that they've already got, and yet workloads continue to grow. So how does the in-house legal team respond to these challenges? Is anyone on this call expecting your budget to increase as we go in towards 2026? Is anyone hiring aggressively to expand their team? No. Exceptions, but not as a rule. So frankly, it's no surprise that being in-house is beginning to lose some of its shine. Indeed, if you follow the legal press, you'll have seen a new expression coined, the great departure. People are actually leaving the in-house profession at unprecedented rates. Those rates are beginning to look more like the departure rates from private practice. The pressure that in-house faces versus the rewards for too many is not worth it. Now that might be a bleak presentation of the in-house industry, but yet ironically, for those that are savvy enough to read the landscape correctly, there's actually never been a better time to be in-house. It's actually probably the most exciting place in the entire legal services spectrum. Now, why do we say that? Okay, we say that because in-house have the potential to rewire and reimagine how legal teams work in order to achieve spectacular results. And this is where legal operations-led strategies will increasingly become the cornerstone of modern legal departments, whether you're one lawyer or whether you've got a team of 200 plus attorneys globally. Legal operations offers an extraordinary transformation capability. And yet, whilst we have a limited number of people who are doing it successfully, we find that many teams that look to embrace legal operations encounter some really stiff headwinds in order to get their agenda up and ground. So this is what today's about. The transformative capability of legal operations is unquestionable, but too many are facing extreme challenges, and we want to shed some light on how to deal with that. So I'm super glad to have you with us today. We know it's going to be beneficial, and if you have questions, send them through on the chat. We'd be delighted to address them towards the end of the session. So let's dive right in. Now, the objectives for today is I'm going to flag up the 10 most substantial headwinds that we see when people are trying to stand up their legal operations initiative. Now, up front, a number of these issues will present like comorbidities, so one relates to the other. But I'm treating them separately for a specific reason, because I want you to achieve the depth of understanding of each issue so that you can deal with it effectively. For each of these headwind challenges, we're going to pick on 3 to 5 solutions that we know work. For many of you, they're going to seem obvious, but if you want to be healthy, it's pretty obvious too, isn't it? Sleep, diet, exercise, some mindfulness work, but most of us cannot be said to be in peak condition, despite how easy the formula is to achieve it. Today is about sharing our knowledge of the GLS group after literally hundreds of legal team transformation projects and over a decade of learnings. But I call this out because knowledge share is one of the key tools for effective legal operations. There are currently no universities that are offering legal operations as a management science. It's an early stage sector. Legal teams are fragmented. They are in and of themselves not in a huge herd where learnings can be disseminated quickly. A lot of the innovations in legal operations has come from localized innovation by individual teams. So peer-to-peer sharing is a very key aspect of being successful in legal ops, and we're making our contribution. As we get through this session, we're going to demystify a lot of the misconceptions associated with legal operations, and we're going to point you to a host of amazing resources that are available to you. And obviously, we'd love to be working with any of the teams that are on this call. In fact, most of you are perfectly qualified clients for GLS, as legal operations is something, as you'll discover, it requires receptivity of concept within the host organisation to succeed. And clearly you guys are receptive. So what does the session look like? Top 10 issues. We're also going to circle back on what didn't make the top 10, because I think the exclusions are going to be as informative as the inclusions. We're going to wrap up on some conclusions in terms of how you deal with legal operations headwinds. We're going to point you to those resources, and we're going to tell you about how we might be able to work with you next. So let's jump right in. But for many of you, the GLS group might be a new organisation. So 20 seconds or 30 seconds on that. So GLS Group, we're an integrated service provider. We focus on one thing, helping in-house teams achieve more through legal operations-led strategies. If you want a law firm, call one. We have one, but don't call us. Given legal teams don't have all the resources they need, resource deficiency, we've built the world's largest online legal team resource stack. If you haven't got a resource, chances are you can find it on our platform for around 20% of the cost of getting it yourself. Now, to make our proposition work, we necessarily have to invest heavily in legal technology. And because legal teams are so time poor, all too often on a managed service basis, we are deployed by organisations to rebuild or reinvigorate, re-optimise their legal team across either the entire legal department or almost any function within a legal team that you could imagine. So that's us. Along the way, yeah, a little bit of recognition, Financial Times, most innovative service providers, blah, 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 blah. Awards are only good if you win them, so we're happy to have picked up a few. Right, let's jump straight in. The biggest challenge. The first challenge that I'm going to talk about is understanding legal operations. The reality is, if you do not understand what something is, how are you going to avail yourself of its benefits? And unfortunately, there is a very skewed and I think rather unhelpful series of misconceptions of what legal operations is. It isn't helped by the fact that some of the more recognisable forums such as ACC and CLOC, which are wonderful forums for their members, there's no question, okay, and they're representative of the interests of their members, but they offer definitions which are heavily skewed to their North American members. resulting in somewhat of a myopic view of what legal operations is for most teams. And most legal teams globally are 1 to 4 lawyers maximum, right? Teams of a size greater than that are literally the 1% in-house teams. So these clock or ACC-based models built around, insert number, 12 core competencies of dedicated teams with non-legal competencies such as systems integration, data analytics, etc. It's very easy for the smaller, normal legal team to, on the casual sniff test, think, no, this is not going to work for us. We don't have scope, we don't have time, we don't have budget to start hiring in all of these non-legal practitioner specialists. And that's unfortunate because it excludes the benefits and potential of legal operations for many legal teams. But let's systematically work through what this headwind looks like. So firstly, legal operations is an emergent field. There's no question about it. It's early days. Secondly, and this is a very interesting, subtle point, okay? In-house leadership have a fiduciary/vocational, ethical and fiduciary obligation to the business, and that's to protect it. And protecting anything, particularly in a legal point of view, where you have obligations owed to the bar, owed to your client, is always been and traditionally best served by a cautious, slowly, if it's not broken mentality, okay? And that's chief amongst the reasons why change in the legal industry is so glacial. In-house leaders, to be an effective leader, to discharge their fiduciary obligation, are reluctant to embrace new too soon. And what's legal operations about? It's about change that is absolutely needed. So there's a vocational lack of receptivity to legal ops, compounded by confusing definitions around it. There's the headlines. Headline distortion, we call that. Too often, legal operations is conflated with the latest big legal tech implementation, the CLMS system, the AI scanning tool that'll make you breakfast and win your case in the afternoon, all in the same day, okay? And along with that, the clock, the ACC definition, the headlines, is this perception that legal operations initiatives to stand up require big budgets when anything is fun. That's further from the truth. There are a whole range of other misconceptions, such as a tool-based, expertise-based concept. So the solution that we're offering you on this first headwind, because if you don't know what it is, you can't harness its benefits. The first definition that I want you to carry with you post this session, and anyone inside your organization, you need to drum it into their head. This is what legal operations is. Very simply, legal operations is anything that can boost the unit of productivity per unit of effort of your lawyers verifiably. It could be a CLMS system, could also be a checklist. Checklists are free. But it's more than that. Understanding legal operations in a way that allows you to deploy its potential inside your organization, you need a better model. Now, I'm not criticizing CLOC and ACC because their membership is for well-heeled organizations for the most part, particularly CLOC. They've already got established legal operations teams, most of which are just managing accounts payable functions, right? But most of us, right, we don't. So we need a better model. We need a model which is aligned to the real-world construct in which we work. And that's smaller teams, busy, time and budget poor, operating under increasing pressure, okay? That's the reality for pretty much everybody on this call. I've looked through the organizations that you represent. There also needs to be vocational acceptance. Whilst current leadership or the more aged leadership are looking to check out on their career over the next 5 years, it's those that fall into, the leaders that fall into the 40 through to 55 age bracket who are still looking at making changes. And it's this demographic that are increasingly accepting that just getting the legal advice is right. That's a given. Part of the job now is how do you continually upgrade the performance of your in-house teams? You're expected to understand the technology landscape. You're expected to be exploring and inquisitive and receptive to new ways of working because that's just what the job requires. Vocational acceptance. Value demonstration. Legal operations is that which brings and delivers value back to the business. And we have this concept we call the primary exchange and the secondary exchange. You've got to trade on it. Legal operations and legal teams must trade on these two exchanges. The primary exchange, that is what the business values most. Legal operations must resonate with primary exchange. It must save organisational time. It must save organisational money. Okay, they're both the same thing. Save time, you save money, and stop spending money you don't need to. But this other third element of the primary exchange, business agility. Legal ops needs to help the business to be more responsive to business opportunities and close things down faster. They're the three primary exchanges. The secondary exchange is what it means for the legal team. Now, legal operations is defined, in our view, manifests itself in the proof of the pudding concept. So unless you can deploy a small self-contained self-authored demonstrable win, demonstrable, right? If you can't demonstrate the value of the initiative, it's not worth doing, okay? So you've got to understand it. We felt that to address challenge one, and this is the only time I'm going to go slightly off reservation, that a new model for legal operations is required, one that's built around the real world that most in-house teams face, okay? A more complete action-orientated model, and it needed to feature the following. Simplicity. Conceptually, everyone gets it. If you read the definitions of legal ops for ACC and clock, they're heavily engineered, right? Ours is simple. It's anything that can boost productivity and you can demonstrate. It's got to be relevant. It's got to be relevant to all teams, not just the big teams. It's got to be realistic. It's got to be something capable of implementing in an environment where you're time short, growing pressure, resource stretched. Planning. It's got to be something that a model that you can impose over your activities and come up with a plan very, very simply. It's got to allow you to make decisions effectively, and it's got to allow you to make actions. Now, our model, I'm not going to deep dive into this because it is available on the GLS Knowledge Centre and it's not subject of today. Okay. The key challenge here, number one, is understanding it. We've developed an intuitively understandable model, which if you think you're struggling to get people to appreciate what legal operations is, we encourage you to take a look at that. Okay. So let's get to challenge two. Assuming that everybody's got a good understanding of what legal operations is and the benefits seem enticing, as indeed they are, what next? Well, we've got to get buy-in. And the problem here is that great ideas mean absolutely nothing unless people will give them a chance to flourish. Now, the reality is that most organisations have new initiative fatigue. Trying to stand up a new initiative, and it could be IT, it could be compliance, it could be marketing, it could be anybody. There's so many different new initiatives. Reflect on your own organisation. There's a lot of internal competition for a fairly limited oxygen set for new initiatives. In the legal ops space or the legal team space, it's almost certain that there's probably been a history of false starts. Limited capacity, a history of false starts. Who's going to want to get behind that kind of initiative? It's a ferocious headwind. Key sponsors is an issue. Board doesn't really understand it for the reasons that we've discussed and availability. Legal team, director of legal, general counsel, great. But where do they sit on the totem pole inside your organisation? Okay. So, and then again, you have a concept of self-interest, which is an entirely rational phenomenon. People inside your organisation are only going to get behind things that benefit them. So the headwinds in terms of getting buy-in are very strong, and it requires a very specific response. This slide is pure gold. It's a precondition for any success if you want to get legal operations up and running. Number one, if it's day one, day zero, if you want any chance of getting legal operations embraced by your organisation, you have to have your business ask for what you know they need. Something as simple as a desktop survey. Would you like your contracts closed faster? Would you like legal to be more responsive? Do you think that it would be better if legal could help close business deals a lot quicker, etc.? Some carefully worded questions disseminated over an online questionnaire. Everybody can help ask you for what you know they need. Some one-to-one interviews with key stakeholders will come onto that after. Again, some of these solutions are going to be common. I pointed out the comorbidity issue. If you want to get buy-in, you've got to deliver the proof of the pudding. And that manifestly determines what kind of initiatives should be considered legal ops and what you should start and when you should do it. Okay. We're going to advocate small, self-contained, self-authored steps and demonstrable wins. You've got to have your key man strategy. I've just slightly alluded to it. You've got to work out who within the organisation could support you, go and talk to them, ask what they want, work out what their pet wins are and deliver them where it makes sense. You've got to demonstrate the primary value exchange result. How is what you're proposing going to do saving the business time, i.e. money, and helping them do business better? If you don't have an answer to that, move on. Lawyer inclusion. The number of teams who take the first big step, which is, yes, we can embrace this, but then go and hire someone outside of the legal team, a dedicated legal operations director, promote a paralegal through to legal operations, and expect them to work in a silo. These talented people who can bring so much to the equation will be entirely ineffectual if there isn't some base level of legal team member inclusion. This is where we depart most profoundly from ACC and CLOG. Okay, if legal operations is going to work inside your organisation, there must be some level of legal team member inclusion. We're going to unpack that very shortly. Okay. Right. Leads us to this question. Well, Matt, why would you recommend that the lawyer take on yet another job? The lawyer must be involved, there's no question. The problem is that lawyers already have a day job. And the notion that, yes, I'm going to take on the mantle of responsibility or sponsoring legal ops inside of my organisation, in addition to my day job, frankly, is just not appealing. And as a result, people don't step forward. And as a result, those that are mandatorily conscripted into the role do so reluctantly, and it doesn't work. Now, the headwind here is actually inarguable. Your average lawyer is working 50 hours a week. Doesn't leave a lot of time. Just ask their families. Yeah, just ask their families. The work-life equation is already not the greatest, not the greatest. Historic engagement. What we know is that from prior initiatives, when you involve the lawyer, you get patchy, limited, interrupted participation and contribution, which if you have a non-legal legal ops team, they're not getting the support that they need, or if you don't have that, nothing's getting done. Either way, it's a slippery incline. You have ownership reluctance. Again, I've mentioned it. Almost all organisations in this call will have at least tried something that didn't work, and there's, well, maybe we should be doing something else, or maybe I don't want to do it. The solution here is as profound as it is simple to implement. All of the hubris and confusion and knowledge deficit about legal ops and what to do is discarded by the following principles. Effective legal ops, if it's to be sustainable, maintain momentum, and it's to be implemented in a way that people will give you the buy-in that they need and the legal team members will want to participate, it has to be related to what's in the inbox of the lawyers, which relates to what the needs of the business are on that day. Your legal operations strategy must relate to the inbox. If it doesn't, it's not going to work. If you're proposing something that's going to help a team member do something that they're looking at, a project they're looking at today, or a workflow they're looking at today, do it more efficiently, you will get their attention more. Second point, ignore this at your own peril. The role of the in-house lawyer has changed, right? Working until they leave, and that's why in-house lawyers typically stay 18 to 36 months in a job and then move on. Question your own CV. Is that what your pattern looks like? 85-15 rule. The lawyer, in-house lawyer, needs to be spending 85% of that 50 hours working on what the business needs, and 15% of that time working on ways to improve the delivery of what the business needs at that moment. You've achieved congruence and alignment. You don't say, oh, can you implement this CLMS system? And you're a derivatives lawyer. Doesn't work. You need alignment of the initiative with the inbox of the lawyer. Non-lawyer, you absolutely need to have a willingness to accept that non-lawyers can make a substantial contribution to a legal operations objective, but not if you cut them adrift, not if you don't back them, okay? So on day one, we need legal team members included, and we do that by saying, hey, we're working on things that can help you get through today better, and the leadership of the in-house team needs to be able to say 15% of your working week can be working on those things. It's not like 15% of the week you can go paint a house. It's 15% of your 50 hours where you support contracting needs of the business. 15% of that is on how we can do it better. Right? It's an aligned agenda. And then we need RPLV thinking, which is how do we bring a legal operations mindset to every member of the team? We'll break down RPLV, but basically it's a decision-making framework that you can learn in under 90 seconds and you can apply instinctively to every decision. Basically, it breaks down like this: resources, prioritization, leverage, validation. Resources, what have I got? I'm going to come back to this point later on. Leverage, am I using it as efficiently as I can? Well, some things can go further than others. Maybe we should task them in that particular direction. Then we have prioritization. Well, all things being equal, if I've got two categories of resource, one of which will show that we've saved the organization 2 hours per contract over the course of the year, which equals 13,000 hours, right? Versus, oh, I'm going to go get an opinion from a law firm on something, no brainer. Okay. So, and then validation, we need to be able to demonstrate it. Topic for another day. If you visit the back catalogue of sessions, we've got a couple of wonderful sessions on RPLV. Number 4. All right. We know what legal operations is. Okay. We've dealt with that headwind. We've looked at the capacity issue. We've fixed that. Okay. And we've got the right model for legal operations. What next? Well, where do we start? Knowing where to start is half the battle. How many teams have gone because of the headlines brought to you by the software companies that are paid for the advertising space or advertised by law firms who are paying for ACC, etc., drinks nights, etc., right? How many organizations have gone, oh, legal needs to be more efficient, let's go implement this big new system? Never works. Never works. The big headwind here is starting with a starting point that is going to bring you to success. Knowing where to start is half the battle. And given the poor understanding of legal operations, most teams are starting at the wrong point. Okay, let's look at this. Firstly, very few people on this call actually understand how a legal department works. Now, you can hang up on me now if you like, but imagine this. You drove your car to work this morning, did you? You think you know your car really well, don't you? Yeah. How it handles, how much you need to push on the brakes in order to get it to stop in time. Perfect. It's your car, it's your space. Pop the hood, what do you see? Wires, shiny bits. You got no idea, if you're like the average person, what makes that car work. And it's exactly the same with your legal department. You've got an instinct to feel for it, but you've got no idea of the mechanics. So the first thing is you need to adopt a legal department engineering approach. Okay. There are things and processes and infrastructure and ways of doing things that when you pop the hood, if you understand that, then all of a sudden you can start manipulating it. You become the mechanic, right? You can take a car that doesn't work to a car that performs nicely, just with a click here and a switch there in many cases. Progress drivers. This is a major misconception. In-house teams have for too long thought the only way I can deal with all this capacity issue is I need more budget, which the business is not going to give you. I need to expand the team. I need another team member. No, you don't. Okay. Think of this. If you were harvesting a field, would you want to do it with men with shovels? Or maybe just hire a combine harvester tractor for a couple of hours. Okay. Labor, physical exertion versus mechanical engineered assist. The point is leverage performance. And we have an abundance of plethora of different ways of working and tools to work with in order to achieve a multiplier effect from the headcount that you've got and the resources that you've got. There's the mermaid siren. This will be the third time that I've alluded it to, but I see some big corporate names as attendees on this session. And the bigger you are, the more likely you think that you can buy your way into legal department efficiency. You're going to go for that CLMS system and you're going to replace it after 3 years, and you're going to be one of the many that fall into the 90% of CLMS implementation failure. The mermaid siren. Legal tech is conflated with legal ops, and it's not the same thing. Legal tech is just a tool because, yes, it can boost unit of productivity, but usually it doesn't. Ambitious goals too. You're excited about potential. You can see, you can read case studies, you can talk to our clients who have achieved incredible things. You think, I want that. I want it all now. We had one substantial family-owned company, turned over around 14 billion a year, and 3 years is how long it takes to transform a legal team at a fairly swift clip, but based on small incremental modularity implementation. And no, we need to do it in 18 months. All right, not going to work. And you know, it struggled. So you need to temper down your goals, right? And we're going to show you how. The first thing is the GLS legal tube map. On the next slide, I'm going to present to you our engineering view of what a legal department looks like. It's a first of its kind. There's no knowledge-based asset out there that even approximates the level of detailed understanding which you can glean from this tube map in seconds. Okay, I encourage you to look at the live version of this. You need to familiarize yourself with the mechanics of your legal team and then benchmark how are you currently performing against a peer department. And if you don't do that, what are you fixing? Where are you moving towards? You do not have the reference points for efficient progress. Generally speaking, though, there are 3 starting points. The first is if there's a building ablaze in the compound that is your company, you're expected to put it out. Well, go fix that. All right? Otherwise, there can be no building left. That's not an ideal way, but if you can do something, right? Now, that might be vendor onboarding is just way too slow inside your organization. KYC review and compliance checks too slow. Trouble ticketing for contract reviews, too slow turnaround, right? Fix it. But there are more engineered and efficiency-based approaches. When you look at our tube map, and I'll bring it up as I say on the next slide, there are what we call foundational stations, keeping with the vocabulary of the tube map analogy, right? There are some foundational stations without which your train line doesn't work. So London, Victoria Station, without that super interchange station, none of the lines interconnect, therefore people can't get to where they need to be, regardless of where they start. Okay. And then we have repeater stations. At every station you go to, there's going to be a fire exit, there's going to be an escalator. There are some resource categories that if you can get them right, it's going to boost a whole lot of legal function processes at the same time. And then there's another approach, which is pick the most important process and just have a go at that straight away. But above all, the first and most important starting point is the one where there is zero prospect of your legal operations initiative to fail. And whatever you need to do, if you start with 10, could be risky, we'll make it 8. 8 still looks a little bit, make it 5. You bring it down until your legal operations initiative meets our criteria. It's small enough where it's guaranteed to succeed. It's going to throw up metrics on how you trade in the primary and secondary exchanges, and it's what the business asked you for. You keep downscaling your ambition and your initiative until it's that time. And there are some other conditionalities to really boost it. This is the right starting point. Engineering-led, make the business ask you for it, and then profile, down select your initiative until there's zero prospect of failure. Because if you fail, you are yet another initiative that's starved of oxygen. Legal operations only works if you absolutely eliminate the prospects of failure. And that's why I have very firm views on major legal technology implementations. It's a year 3 proposition at best for your average legal team. Here's the tube map. Hopefully you can see it. I'm just looking at how it renders on my big screen. But you've got literally hundreds of different elements that make up the 15 critical functions that account for what every legal team globally does. You can slice and dice it and stack things in a slightly different order if you like, but this gives you the reference points for what it is that you're doing. And mentally, if you just take the contracting function there, look at all the elements that we say are from a best practice point of view. And we're not saying you have to have it, but we're saying it's a reference point. Do you have it? Do you have a group legal policy that says what you need in terms of all those key issues? Do you have templates reflect that? Do you have clause banks to reflect that? You can run a slide rule down there and you can mentally benchmark yourself against the world-class function very, very quickly. Right. Number 5. Key. If you can't track it, it's not legal operations. If you can't track it, don't do it. To win support, you must show that you're trading results from the primary and secondary exchanges. Primary, again, time, cost, business agility. Unless you're moving the needle on those things, don't do it. Secondary exchange, benefits for the legal department, greater transparency, greater retention, etc., etc. You must score big on the primary. And obviously to get the secondary exchange is really more directed at the legal team members itself, okay? That gives them the incentive. Do you want to work in a legal team where what you need to do and your authority within the business is clearly stepped out? Yeah, that'd be helpful. Do you want to work in a team where you've got the basic resources that you need? Yeah, that'd be helpful, okay? So we need to score big on both, but most especially the primary exchange. So the headwind here, though, is the actual legal team itself, because all of your peer departments, finance, IT, marketing, they're already using metrics, right? They have P&Ls, they have monthly and quarterly reports where they're looking at the performance of it, and then their sales are adjusted accordingly, but not in legal, and that has to end. So the starting perception in terms of data-based capture of the value you bring, actually, the starting perception is that legal itself isn't really value creating, which couldn't be anything further from the truth if you know what to look for, okay? But it's compounded by this perception, well, legal's that, the obiter dicta, the minority decision, the interpretation of that, and the GDPR positional paper. It's intangible. People don't really get it. And why should they? They didn't go to law school for 6 years and spent 2 years training and 5 years before they could actually try to whack them behind the ears. Legal's a cost center is another perception here. Right? The perception is you don't bring value, you just cost us money. Yeah, because lawyers are expensive, and if you bring us a silly instruction and we spend a lot of time doing it, it tends to take a little bit longer than we'd like. It is a complex subject matter. The business shouldn't necessarily be expected to understand the intricacies of what the legal team does. But the starting point, right, is this perception that we don't bring value, and that has to change, right? Now, the reason why this headwind is so severe, in fact, it's the most ferocious of the lot, is that most teams do not take the first step. It's a simple step. It doesn't take long to do. It's not an exact science, but there is so much value that comes from it, is that they do not benchmark and build up a database view about how they perform in terms of peer departments. That is a manifest omission, and it accounts for initiatives not getting the support they need. Okay, you need a clear starting point, a database view of where you stand. Do you have X, Y, and Z? Go to the tube map. Do you have it? Yes or no? Are people satisfied with the turnaround times on contracts? Yes or no? Build up a quant-based view of almost all aspects of the legal function. Here's the important point. The measurability criteria, the measurability imperative runs supreme in legal ops. If you can't measure it, don't do it. Just don't. If you can get away with it, don't do it. All right. Trading exchange. You've got to be able to show data how you improve the trading exchange. You've also got to overcome the inherent modesty that exists within legal functions. I don't mean outside of the job, but generally speaking, lawyers are hardworking, don't take a lot of praise. This is my experience. You've got to overcome that modesty, and you've got to be prepared to show the results of your legal team. It's a bit crass for most lawyers. Well, you've got to become a bit of a publicist and self-promotionist, but you need hard data because that's the language of business. You've got to become results focused, okay? Reportability, actually, the notion that you are going to, you have to, you must, it's an imperative, report on your success helps you down select what you can actually focus on. It's a natural mechanism to come up with a higher quality of priorities for your legal operations division. Next challenge. I mean, we are deep now into what it takes to become successful. And I'm hoping as we just cross over the halfway mark that you think, well, okay, yeah, that does sound simple. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, sleep, rest, mindfulness, nutrition. It's not that complicated, but you need to be reminded of it. Going live. This is reads like a comorbidity. Okay. Tons of work can be done to get to a point where you're about to go live. But unless you can get your initiative live, it means precisely nothing. All the hard work, the hours you put in, the resources that you've expended, the favors that you've called in, it means nothing unless you can get that initiative live. You spend a lot of time and money coming up with a global template, yeah, instead of having 16 regions use different templates for no reason, okay? You've got to get it live, or all that hard work of moderating the cats and trying to get them line up neatly means nothing. Effort doesn't count in legal operations. I'm being brutal here. I'm not sugarcoating it. Effort does not count. Having worked hard means nothing. Success is everything. Boring. Corporate communications is usually inadequate. Usually inadequate for structural reasons. Where does legal sit? How are they viewed within the organisation? But usually it's because people didn't ask what was wanted and people didn't update on the progress of moving towards it. That's it. Okay. Small updates, it's very better to get too many emails when it comes to what have you done than none. Initiative ownership. This is tough. Going live is tough if you do not follow the rules of success that we've set through 1 through to 5. If you go with the CLMS system, guess what? You don't own it. Procurement probably did. Finance had their say, and IT are probably playing a chief role in implementing it. Effective legal operations, you implement initially that where legal is the almost exclusive owner of the initiative, if not the exclusive owner of the initiative. Too many chefs ruined the broth. There's a reason why these sayings and the wisdom-isms exist, and it applies most especially for legal ops. The prevailing current. So even if you're good at corporate communications, even if you've chosen the right thing, the prevailing current requires legal and legal ops. Generally, we're swimming against it. All the perceptions, not the value added, false start before, cost center, etc. So it's hard. So you actually need to play a mistake-free football. And what it looks like is this: you must implement don't fail methodology. I've said this almost 4 times in different guises. You have to choose things you're going to succeed. You have to, again, you see common solutions coming through to all these challenges. You need to have focused on something that the business asked you for. If the business didn't ask you to go for a legal team offsite retreat, don't do it. Or don't publicise it anyway. Business size initiatives, scale it back to the point where the initiative is too small and it's implemented too regularly for there to be any prospect of failure. Okay, you want to upgrade your documentation library. Don't try and do them all the time in one go. Do the purchase order, because the elasticity of supply should mean that the purchase order, once you get that right, is people will just click, yeah, I want to do business with you. I want to do business with you. They tend to be non-negotiable. Don't try and upgrade the template, which is your major customer services contract, where all the business units who are familiar with it don't want to change their approach because they're used to it, they're familiar with it. Scale it back until there's 0 prospects of it being implemented. And if you implement the purchase order, well, 1, you can largely write it yourself. 2, you can make it compatible with whatever the technology platform it sits on. 3, you can integrate an e-signature thing in. 4, you can report back that over the year, X number of thousand of purchase orders have been done on the new template without any issues. They're just factual, but it reads well. Corporate communications, again, hit the snooze button. It's an important point. It's not done. A separate point in this. Well, the total legal is not close to the top. It's just not. Okay. Now, consistency of effort. Okay. It's a simple fact that legal operations initiatives, if they manage to launch at all, they're quite frequently run out of steam. Legal operations is an incremental gain. It's step 9 of the GLS model, right? It's atomic, micro steps taken regularly. That is the only pathway for successful legal operations for your team. If you're an outlier about to do a big bang legal tech implement, well done you, but you are not the minority. You are not the majority. Okay, micro steps taken all the time is the only consistent pathway. Let's unpack that a little bit. But all the capacity of the legal team, the job on top of the job, the perception of legal availability losses, make progress is an extremely strong headwind to sail into. Legal team capacity is limited, resources are limited. It's a real issue. And for those of you who are in the legal team, yep, yeah, definitely. Let's redraft those templates. Definitely, let's automate this. Definitely. Ping, email, business unit X, trying to close a new deal. Drop what you're doing. Focus on that. Internal time for you to put your comments in on the new templates, which the legal ops, non-legal team have come up with. So the propensity for legal team members to be reprioritized because of the then current need of the business is it's a force very, very difficult to say no to. And hence the 85-15 principle. 15% in the totem pole, touch that. Very, very few organizations does the general counsel actually sit on the board in a decision-making capacity. There are exceptions, but very, very few instances where they're the case. The people that make the money inside the business usually sit higher. Their voice is louder. They have the ear of the decision makers. So you can see that the conditions are not exactly ripe unless you adjust your approach to legal operations. Below the radar, small, consistent steps. And now I'm going to bring together solution recommendations from the other challenges, and you see how neatly they all come in together. Firstly, focus on what's in the inbox. And then all of a sudden, the reprioritization headwind, strong as it is less impactful. 85-15. Cast your legal operations based around a contribution from your legal team for a number of hours each week. The non-lawyer, absolutely legitimate, but you've got to have the lawyer in the team because otherwise the non-lawyers will be sitting around waiting for inputs from the lawyers, which they won't get in a timely fashion. Not productive. RPLV thinking. I'm about to commit a resource to a particular project. What's the leverage profile of that? Am I committing the right resource? How do I prioritize that? How do I validate the results? Take seconds to come up with that kind of thing. Celebrate your wins. Don't fail methodology. Bite-sized initiatives, too small, too frequent for there any possibility to fail. That's how you achieve consistency of effort. Don't involve early stages, other business units. Focus on things that fall within the legal domain. That way you can build runs up on the board quickly. If I were a CLMS company or a law firm, I'd be telling, well, what you need is for us to come in and advise you on all of this and buy our expensive system. It's not needed, not needed. The totem pole. I'll go through this quickly because I've touched on it. The legal industry, like most professional services industries, is peculiar in that it just simply won't follow leadership that hasn't been through the ranks. If you're going to be the managing partner of a law firm, you needed to have been a very, very successful partner before you're going to get the nod there. If you're going to be the head of legal, you need to be proven to have been very, very effective. So the idea that we have people that haven't been in the trenches, haven't gone to law school, didn't go to the College of Law, didn't do their training contracts, didn't spend time in the trenches and those weekends working there, I'm going to follow you. That places professional legal operations directors and legal operations staff in a very, very difficult position because there just isn't naturally a inclination for your average lawyers to say, yeah, I'm prepared to follow you. So legal ops leaders usually do not carry the same, do not have the same respected authority as a head of legal or a partner in law firm. Legal ops teams, steep incline. Cultural barriers. Lawyers, I am one, at least I was in years gone by, they're just difficult to work with. Now, part of that Part of that is because they operate in different conditions. Part of that is because they are, very intelligent people, don't suffer fools gladly. Part of that is because sometimes, as it happens so much in private practice, good people end up doing bad things, which I think is one of the spectacular failings of the law firm environment. You have good people ending up acting like savages. So the bottom line, and consequently, the support drawbridge can get pulled up very, very quickly. So that the non-legal legal ops team members, trying to get an initiative up, the support can be pulled up very, very quickly, whether it's demands of the inbox or whether it's, the egos and hierarchical isms of the team. So what do we need? Well, again, look at the consistency of the solutions. Look at the quality of the solutions here. The hierarchical nonsense falls away because the legal team's there to serve the business. You've got to make the business to ask it. Okay, you're in legal ops, send out your survey, get feedback. The business says they want this. Well, you'll find the legal team members will fall into line, or the legal team members say that's what we should focus on. Secondary value exchange. This goes out to my non-lawyer legal ops colleagues. The primary exchange is the base case, right? What's in it for the business, but you also need to be just as clever in communicating the benefits to the legal team itself. This is a secondary exchange. Why is this going to make being a lawyer inside this legal team more productive, more enjoyable, more qualitative, more beneficial for one's career? Legal participation, we've talked about that. You've got to bring them in. Legal team leadership. It just needs to be better enlightened. I think those that fall into the age category of 58 and above, I'm being generous here, are probably going to be the least receptive. I'm painting with a broad brush. Anyone that falls in that category, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm close to that myself, notwithstanding my youthful appearance. Joke. But it's the younger generation leaders that are coming through, ones that have had these things in their hands since birth, right? Where mobility and application and acceptance and familiarity with digitization tools, etc., is just taken for granted. That sweet spot leadership, 40 through to 50, 54, naturally get it, right? So we're seeing a change in leadership, change in the quality. I'm not going to say quality because they're good at what they did, but the way they were doing it is no longer going to take them into the future. So the GLS model, which I, again, go into the back catalogue and have a look at it, guards against you exposing yourself to all these risks. Planning, I'm going to speed up a little bit here. So planning. The challenge here is that most legal op initiatives are going to be followed or accompanied with a request, well, show me your plan and how do I cost it? Okay. And, the fact that it's approached in that particular way, show me your budget, sort of perpetuates the notion that legal ops is a cost center. The headwind here is that resource requests just reinforce the notion of cost center. It's a string factor for legal ops planning. Well, how do you forecast so far into the future? Okay. And that's a trick because there's a lot of new things that are coming to market very rapidly that could manifestly change how things are done and manifestly change cost estimates. It's a very dynamic environment. The landscape requires dynamic planning is the key consideration here. And of course, inherently, it's expensive industry. How do you cut the costs of a lawyer, right? Do you want to have good lawyers in your legal team or not? There's a base level, because if you don't pay enough, they're going to go work somewhere else and you're going to get stuck with people that you don't want to have. So the unit cost of the lawyer is expensive. So legal ops is all about that productivity return that I get. So it's so overwhelming. So the solution for this, and this is, I'm covering a complex area, but this is the broad strokes of what you need to know. You have to have a data-based view of where you're at. Okay, because let's just say that what you're doing currently represents best practice. What does that mean? Well, it means one, you don't need to spend any more money. Two, you've got a free kick because maybe you're not leveraging it to other parts of your business. Well, there's a free kick right there. No money, data-based view, better quality decision, better resource management. Legal ops planning needs to cover a 3-year period. If you just follow our methodology and the average, and you've got 15% of the lawyer's time over 3 years, which is lightning fast in the scheme of law. Look at what your team achieved in the last 3 years. It'll be next to nothing, okay? And I'm saying to you, 3 years, you can do a full transformation of everything, bring it up to a benchmarked peer, best in peer category class. Okay, so it's a 3-year journey at the minimum. Year 1 focuses on changes achieved with existing resources. Right? You don't want to be asking for a whole lot of new resources because most of the time you've got far more resources than you knew you had. I've got a whole presentation on that. Year 2, all the projects that you implement are paid for by cost savings. So they are not, it's not a budget, it's an investment proposal. Okay. If I spend 1, I can bring in 20 to the business. Return on investment. That's the key thing. And major, before I get to that, major implementations in terms of CLMSs, things like that, that manifestly and indelibly change the way your team works. Before you go and implement a CLMS system, as an example, and I'm picking on it because it deserves to be picked on, even though they are wonderful. Okay, they're just not implemented correctly. If you implement a CLMS, it's no longer your workflows. It's some software engineer and a contract administrator's view of how your contracting function should work. Who would allow that? Okay, if you didn't have a database view as to what you need supported and then matched up the supply landscape against what you need supported, that's why you went out in the pickle that you were in. Legal Ops does not submit budget requests. It makes business investment proposals. If I do this, the return on the investment to the business will be X, Y, and Z. We have very well-established methodologies, effectively so much so that every team that we work with in legal operations domain, when they've submitted a business proposal, it's near as done at 100% success rate. Why? So let me give you a small case study. We work with an organisation where we optimise their approach to contracting across Asia Pacific. In the first year, we took out over 10,000 man-hours from that contracting function. Average unit cost of US $270, fully loaded cost, right? What's the saving to the business? That was achieved with less than $50,000. Okay. Now, someone in the business development team comes in and says, here, we've got a new opportunity in this market and I can get you a 10x return. People are going, wow, that initiative achieved something like a 300x return. The business will listen to you and get behind you if you make investment proposals and stop like Oliver Twist, please, sir, can I have some more? No, you've got to make investment proposals and show the return on investment. So year 2, costs initiatives are paid for many times over by the savings you bring to the business. If you can frame your efforts in that, who's going to say no? No one, particularly as things get more tricky out there. By the time you get to year 3, the business, when it comes to our client base, tell us what you want to do next. Tell us what you want to do next. You've got the buy-in because you've proved it, you've earned it, you've justified it. 10, access to resource. Traditional legal department thinking, I've mentioned this, is progress only comes from more budget and more people. Yeah, you know what? There are some things that you can only make progress with if you've got more budget. You've got a litigation, you're probably going to need a bit more budget, although there are things you can do around that. Need more headcount? Yes, some things you just need more lawyers, you know. Maybe there's so many meetings that your customer sales teams need lawyers to attend, you just need it. That's it. That's true. However, there are over 40 categories of legal resources over and beyond headcount and budget that almost every organisation on this call has, who are not currently aware that they exist and therefore de facto are not being utilised. So think about this. You're not going to get headcount, you're not going to get budget. Maybe it's time to look a little bit harder into what resource categories you do have and start deploying them and show the results to the business and build some credibility. Why would you even think of asking for more resources? You haven't used that which you've got. The good news here is there is so much that you can access. Being effective at legal ops is about your personal credibility. You have to establish it and you have to establish it fast, and that means using what you've got. I've mentioned the 40 categories. You've got your RPLV framework, which means when it comes to these resource categories, you are instinctively and intuitively going to make better decisions as to how you use it. I've got 2 left. Where am I going? Am I going $10,000 for a review at Baker and Cook, or am I maybe going to get templates reduced, which our business can reduce the number of times that we need to support them to close a deal, right? There are just choices that just actively thinking about the choices you make and the leverage profile, the validation profile, and the prioritization is going to lead you to better results. Right, okay. Really quickly now, we're in the home straight. What's not on this list? in terms of major headwinds? Well, number one, at not one point have you heard me say that access to additional budget is a requirement for an effective legal operations function. It's just simply not. Effective legal operations is about return on investment. If I do this, what's the return of the business? Effective legal operations is about using what you've got plenty. Number two, leadership. It's on the list. You don't need to go out and hire a dedicated legal operations director. There are less than 1,000 on the planet. Most of them are in North America, and most of them preside over teams about large organizations and negotiating hourly rates with law firms and when to pay their invoices. Leadership can be both the lawyer and it can be non-lawyer, but it must include a lawyer. That's the point we make here. Big tech, absolutely not needed. At not one point did I say that you needed to buy your way in through this fantastic system. Don't need it. External consultants, you don't need a GLS. You need the learnings of a GLS. They're all freely available. Thank you for attending this call. There's a treasure trove of learning. We're just giving it to you. We give it to you, and people use us because they just don't necessarily have time, or the board says you need to move and achieve this by then. Okay. Big banks, at no point did I say that you must roll all this out aggressively straight away. Not to the contrary, small, bite-sized bite-sized things done so regularly that you can't fail. There's a bunch of resources, and everybody is attending this call. There will be a string of emails that come out to you to make sure that one, you've got the slides, two, you've got access directly to all the resource references that we're going to share with you. But it's like this. We've written the consumer book on legal operations. Okay, we'll make sure you all get a copy, and it's all based on self-implementation of transformation with the resources that you've got. No requirement for additional budget. The learnings of the GLS legal operations community, we've got 24,500 members last time I checked. The opinions, the data that we've collected from them, it's all available, right, in the opinions channel on the Legal Operations Knowledge Centre. The Transformation Tube Map, click on it, it's a game changer. Legal Ops Bootcamp, go onto the site and roll in our 10-week email-based bootcamp, okay? And over a 10-week self-paced learning, we're going to call out the highlight features of how to launch a legal operations function. And something that we're most proud of, we're the first organisation in the world that's actually come up with an official legal operations training certification. The Legal Affairs Department of the Government of Dubai have asked us, and in conjunction with them, we've launched a certification that will help legal teams achieve more themselves. And there's also something they're recommending to law firms over here to ensure that Dubai becomes a true global hub. And to do that, you need high quality lawyers to oil the wheels that make business possible. And so they need law firms to act more efficiently. So here it is. There will be barcodes that you can just scan when you get your slides. That's the guide. Register on the Legal Operations Centre. I encourage you to do that. There's a ton of free resources you get on registration, but accessing the Knowledge Centre is completely free. There's no paywalls behind any of that. Transformation map, certification, I've talked about it. So let's get you out of here now. I just need another 60 seconds. So the conclusions of these, yes, legal ops is in a nascent stage, not widely understood, and there are strong misconceptions. Hopefully I've lifted the veil on most of those today. There are hard lessons that many teams have learned, right, to come up with the recommendations that we've come through with today, right? What I've shared with you is effectively the sleep, nutrition, exercise, and mindfulness recommendation for your legal operations initiatives. Relatively simple, but how you implement it, when you implement it, there's a little bit of science to that. The 10 key headwinds that I've mentioned are the most severe. Yes, there are other challenges, right? You know, it could be legacy systems and all that sort of stuff, but these are the major obstacles to success. Failure lessons are extremely valuable because they tell us what not to do. And many of these lessons have been learnt the hard way, including by, I think, pretty much everybody on this call has tried to do something and wasn't satisfied with the result. Legal ops solutions, they've got to be crafted with a success-only mindset. Okay, scale back the ambition, keep it small enough to be guaranteed your success. And over time, 3 years, think about a full departmental transformation in the next 3 years compared to what you achieved in the last 3 years. Small atomic size, small atomic changes is the way forward. Common solutions, Most headwinds are addressed by probably half a dozen behavioural changes or principles that you just need to make sure you're asserting and permeate through your legal operations agenda. Hydrogen fuel. Legal ops must be precisely like this. By and large, it's free, but it's ever so powerful. Work with what you've got. You don't need additional resources if you can frame your initiatives as an investment proposal that delivers return on investment to the business. And the key success, well, it remains very simply, legal ops should be inbox aligned, not a clock 12 competencies that can come once you're a huge enough legal department and you can afford to have people doing all these different differentiated and distinct roles. Inbox aligned, 85-15. Lawyers need to be working on the machine, not just in the machine. Bite-sized, constant RPLV application, trade like heck on the primary exchange and build up a database view of where you are, where you're going, and what you've achieved. On that note, how can we help? Well, we can help you with pretty much any aspect of the performance of your in-house team. We can help you build a picture of where you're currently at. We can help you optimize any part of your function. We can replicate any part of your function. Basically, if it's in-house, then that chances are that we've built a gold standard version of it. Don't wish to sound immodest. Most of this stuff is not particularly complex, but the challenge you have is you don't have time to do it. You can probably work out a lot of this stuff yourself, but we've already done it, so why would you spend the time doing it? On that note, feel free to go on the site if you want to talk to us. Book a consult. You'll get up to half an hour of our time to talk about where you're at, and a very beneficial use of that 30 minutes because we can direct you to a host of resources that are all freely available. We can help is the message, and we'd love to help. And I just hope everybody that was interested enough to attend this call just realizes the manifest change and benefit that mastering legal operations can bring to your team, but also to you and your personal career trajectories. It's profound. Thanks for your time, and see you on the next one.